Okay, the meeting will please come to order. And is this working that far away from the area? I'd like to welcome our members, visitors, and staff to this July 8th meeting of the NCPRD District Advisory Committee. While I go through my required remarks, I'd like for you to think of your favorite ice cream flavor. We're going to be coming back to that when we introduce ourselves. This meeting is convening in person and remotely by Zoom. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. The Zoom chat is open. All messages received through the Zoom chat during this meeting will be part of public record and attached to the meeting minutes. If you would like to provide a public comment and are attending in person, please fill out a comment card and turn it in to me. If you're attending virtually and would like to provide a public comment, please select the raise hand feature when the public comment portion of the meeting has begun, and we'll call on you in the order received. So I'd like to begin by welcoming our new alternates and members. And so it looks like who we have here tonight is Vanessa. Vanessa is our sub-area 2 representative. So Vanessa. Very good. I'll give you a word. So these new positions allow us to increase the number of voices coming to the table and will hopefully serve to help us extend our outreach. Alternates are non-voting members, though if there's an absence in their sub-area, they will fill in as a voting member. So Vanessa, welcome. So I'm going to go around and have each of you introduce yourself and tell us your favorite ice cream flavor. I'm going to start. My name is Sheila Shaw and I'm current chair, and my favorite ice cream is coffee ice cream.
I'm Daniel, Daniel Deal, sub-area 4, and I just found out about the Outshine coconut bars, so I think it's my favorite.
Joel Bergman, representing the community centers, and thanks for the reminder, the Outshine Mango Tahini is probably the most sellable. So,
I'm Grover Bornfeld, and I'm in sub-area 1. And I'm an old school guy. I like vanilla Pringle ice cream.
Paul Savas, one of the board directors, liaison to the DAC, and I'm old school as well. Tillamook Neapolitan.
I'll test the mic in here. That seems to be working. And then we move sub-area 1. I'm also the acting chair of the Jennings Lodge CPO in Anybody Cares Group. And I'm up in Courthouse, and there's a tiny little shop called Elevated Ice Cream. They make ginger ice. It's definitely.
Hi, everybody. Again, Vanessa Danes-Slagle in sub-area 2, and my favorite is also Tillamook, but mint chocolate chip.
My name is Laura Jinks, and I'm from Milwaukee, and I love Limitless ice cream, and I like to try their flavors, and cannot recommend enough their lavender blueberry stracciatella. I had it yesterday. So. I'm Jessica Fed, and CPRD's executive assistant. I also love Luna's, but my favorite flavor is Brookie Batter from there.
Hi, everyone. Erin Riel, Planning and Development Director for NCPRD and the staff liaison to the DAC. I am a mint chocolate chip fan as well.
Right, Jeff Munn, Assistant County Counsel, and I'll say cinnamon.
My name is Kia Selly. I'm the district director for NCPRD, and I like whatever is in my freezer, but right now we have Tillamook Oregon Dark Cherry.
Okay, thanks you guys for sharing that. I found some new flavors that you guys were mentioning. I'll have to try those out. Okay, before I dive into the agenda, I'd like to clarify that the expectation and Director Selly's memo to you all was mine. The purpose of this meeting is to make a recommendation to the board of directors about the IGAs that were in the packet that you have for today. And That was included in the memo, which I did approve. Best practice is always to be clear about the intent of meetings. If we are in need of more time, the action can be postponed. If we do need more time, I'll ask that we be clear about what it is that's needed so that that can be obtained. So on our action agenda tonight, there's 2 items, the elections and approval of the meeting summaries for May 13th and June 10th. So we'll start with the elections. And so at this time, nominations are open for chair.
I nominate Sheila for chair.
Second.
Okay, are there other nominations? Are we sure? Okay, those in favor of electing me as chair, please raise your hand. Okay, I see 7 hands. Those opposed? Is anyone abstaining?
And your vote, Sheila?
Oh, well, I guess I'll vote for myself. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the confidence you're showing in me. And at this time, nominations are open for vice chair. I'd like to nominate Daniel. Second?
I second.
Okay, that's 3 seconds. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I guess I'd just like to know, does our current vice chair no longer wish to serve?
Our current vice chair has served 2 terms.
Terms?
And per our bylaws, once you serve 2 times, you cannot
Okay,
be, yeah.
okay, thank you.
All right, with no further nominations, those in favor of Daniel as vice chair, please raise your hand.
Vote confidence. Leave the room.
4, 6, 8, 9. Okay, that's 9 votes in favor, those opposed. And are there any abstentions? Okay, with that, Daniel is elected our vice chair. Okay, second on our action items are approval of the minutes for May 13th and June 10th. So first of all, are there any corrections or additions to the May minutes? Okay, with no corrections or additions, those minutes are approved. Are there any corrections or additions to the June minutes? Okay, with no corrections or additions, those minutes are approved. Oh, Grover. Okay.
Yeah, but no corrections. I appreciate that. They all fall over. I try not to make responses. What I noticed in reading these, I've got great minutes. Whoever took them, congratulations.
And actually, some of them weren't referred to as minutes. I think they were referred to as notes for the one meeting.
Okay, so in either case, there's a significant amount of materials that were agreed to or going to be looked at later and so on and so forth. And I'm looking for, not now, but I would like to be able to, what came out of the minutes, where does it go to have a follow-up as opposed to into who knows where, and maybe it'll come back sometime. And I don't want to resolve that now, but that's been a concern of mine since we started the DAC, and it still is.
Okay, I will take a second review of those, not at the moment, and see if there are action items that we need to do something.
I'd be happy to share my notes with you
Okay.
offline. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to Director Zelli for the district report.
Thank you, Chair Shaw. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I want to begin tonight by sharing my gratitude for the Heart of the Community campaign, donors, and the leaders of that initiative, Valerie Chapman and Mark Elliott, Valerie's in our audience tonight. The campaign raised $20,000 to support recreation programs here at the Concord Community Center. If you donated money to this campaign, please raise your hand, and for the rest of us, please join me in giving them a round of applause. Thank you, and their large check, which you can't catch, just for those of you who might walk away with that large cardboard check tonight. It's up there on the shelf just for our enjoyment, so thank you. Summer's in full swing with daily swims, summer camps, rentals, and recreation programming. This Friday, we'll host our first kids concert here at the Concord Park featuring Red Yarn from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Please take a look at our website or visit, look at that division report that's in your packets because we have a lot of events, movies in the parks, and other fun things to do this summer. We've made a few more improvements to the Concord Community Center by stretching our remaining construction dollars for the project, including the new flooring in this room, which will allow for more flexible programming in the space such as art and cooking classes, as well as rentals. We also have installed historic lighting in the main hallway, which actually repurposed fixtures from the original elementary school. And the new paint and wood refinishing in the gym is now complete. And it's really refreshed that space so that we can call it done and actually make it more available for rentals. So we're very excited about that. Kudos to Alex Gilbertson, Principal Planner, and Eric Brill, Parks and Facilities Maintenance Director, for finding creative solutions to stretch our limited remaining construction funds and continue to improve this lovely building. Next Monday, I'll provide an update on the park at the Jennings Ledge campus to the Oregon City School District Board at 7:30 p.m. at Roger Rook Hall Community Room at the Clackamas Community College's Oregon City campus. I will also reiterate NCPRD's interest in purchasing the park portion of the site to secure the future of the park in perpetuity. So if you have an opportunity to attend, please do so. We are on track to begin construction of the park later this summer. And so we will be actually announcing very soon a groundbreaking event, just a small, modest one, but a groundbreaking nevertheless at that site to celebrate the start of that long-awaited park project. So stay tuned for that event. We are currently reviewing proposals from design professionals for design of a future park at the Justice property. We plan to prepare a conceptual design of that property, but as I mentioned before, we won't be able to start construction of any new park projects after the park at the Jennings Ledge campus until we receive more operational funding through a levy. Each time we bring on a new asset, we need to add maintenance staff. So you'll hear me talk about this more as the year progresses. Community engagement for the trail network plan is underway. During the system plan process, we heard that trails were the most important amenity for district residents. So this project advances that planning work through a generous grant from ODOT's Transportation Growth Management Program, and it will provide a roadmap for trail improvements and identify new trails over the next 20 years. A virtual open house is linked in your packet. So take a look online, and we hope that you'll all participate in that online opportunity to gather community input now through August 16th. Also, some more good news. Metro's Community Choice Grant voting process is just concluded, and we are very excited that 3 of NCPRD's short-term system plan projects have been selected to receive grant funding for that program. So these projects are the Risley Refresh Park Improvement Project, funding for the new park at the Justice property, and an accessible nature skate park that's effectively a skate park at the future 70th and Monroe Park property. We also have received some funds, or will receive some funds, for the River Villa Park Emerald Ash Borer mitigation efforts and some trail improvements. The grant award ceremony with the Metro Council will be held here at the Concord Community Center on July 21st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The meeting will be open to the public and it also will be available on Zoom and a lunch will be provided. So we'll send out more information about that event as we get closer to July 21st. But that is a very exciting opportunity and we're grateful to Metro for their ongoing support of our projects. In terms of maintenance, the locker room boiler at the aquatic park has been installed. We have needed this new improvement for quite some time because we have not had consistent water temperature in those locker rooms. So we're very grateful to have that completed. And we've already started on the process for our capital repair and replacement projects for the new fiscal year. We have awarded contracts to the companies who will complete our water slide repair and concrete coating projects at the aquatic park. So we're continuing to invest at the aquatic park and really make sure that our deferred maintenance is well managed at that facility. These projects are expected to start in September when we have that longer maintenance shutdown period. And we are also moving forward on the purchase of a new dump truck. Again, a long-awaited improvement for the parks maintenance and natural resource team. Lastly, I'd like to recognize all of the NCPRD staff that prepared for and staffed the June 24th Board of Directors meeting. That was a really heavy lift. If you attended, we hosted at least 70 community members in addition to staff and the board. It was a well-attended event that I think really represented the democratic process within the district. And but it was a major undertaking for staff to accommodate so many people and to clean up afterwards. And we are well into our summer season. So I just want to recognize staff that worked some extra long hours the week prior and a few days after. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's amazing all of the things that are happening. I know that we have budget constraints, but to hear so many wonderful things. I want to point out that Erin is going to be at the concert on Friday with Red Yarn. She's going to be tabling there. And I've asked that the NCPRD let us know when those things are happening in case one or two of us wants to show up and support. I've done that before, and it's a great way to meet the community and support NCPRD. So if you're interested in that, please just let Erin know. Okay, we will now open the public comment portion of the meeting. As a reminder, if you would like to provide a public comment and are attending in person, please fill out a comment card and turn it in to me. If you would like to provide a public comment and are attending virtually, please select the raised hand feature and we'll call on you after the in-person comments, and that will be in the order that it's received. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. You may also email submissions for public comments to dac@ncprd.com, and these will be accepted as part of the public records. However, we will not be reading them at the meeting due to limited time constraints. Begin your comment by stating your name and your NCPRD sub-area or address, and we have the map is there for your convenience. Okay, the first card, Anita Blackmar, and the second card, Valerie Chapman. Is it com or N? And is it DAC at NCPRD.com or? Okay, let's make that DAC at NCPRD.org. Okay, Anita.
I'm Anita Blackmar, and I think the darkest chocolate ever invented is the ice cream I would choose first. And I'm sub-area 2. The issue of whether Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 gets done right away or in the second 5-year term of the system plan roadmap is a smaller issue than the bigger context. When I joined the DAC in 2020, the overall context, lack of equitable park distribution, Milwaukee's desire to leave the district, and the financial health of the district were not being talked about. Now they are. A central issue is whether it's workable for NCPRD to continue as originally conceived as a combination of a city and an unincorporated area. This combination hasn't worked out equitably, but now there's an opportunity to switch to something better. The residents and leadership of Milwaukee have a marvelous, inspired vision for the city, transforming its character in brilliant ways. When improvements are made in-house, such as to its own government departments, they align with the city's own revenue. But the city doesn't have an independent in-house parks department. To be a good faith member of NCPRD is to commit to the welfare of the whole district as a priority, not just commit to local aspirations. It may not be the right time for Milwaukee to put some of its focus on the needs of the other 4 sub-areas. For a number of years now, Milwaukee has been considering total self-determination for its park goals by leaving the district. It comes down to a really simple choice. The choice between being all in for the good of the whole district or keeping the focus on being a local community that currently wants to develop and blossom on its own. The status quo isn't working. It's time for a better choice. Thank you.
Okay, Valerie Chapman.
I'm Valerie Chapman. I'm also in Sub-District 2. So I would also like to express my concerns about the structure of the NCPRD. In particular, the reality that it encompasses both unincorporated and incorporated areas. When I attend the DAC meetings, it's clear to me that there is a disparity among the 5 sub-areas. With each of the 5 areas, each of the 5 areas are a similar geographic size and population. One sub-area, 5, is professionally administered by an elected mayor who has funding and the support of both paid and volunteer assistants. The other 4 districts are led entirely by volunteers who do not have the same support structures for their districts. This inequity is readily apparent at the DAC meetings. I think the IGA between the city of Milwaukee and Clackamas County is really important, as is any IGA between 2 different government groups. However, in the case of the DAC, it creates another major disparity since the city of Milwaukee is synonymous with sub-area 5, and none of the other sub-areas are able to negotiate an agreement with a county that takes into account the specific desires or needs of their sub-area's population. I believe that the people who originally created the NCPRD did so with integrity. But I also think that with growth in the unincorporated urban areas and the growing development of the city of Milwaukee, that the joining of the 2 disparate kinds of sub-areas may no longer be as useful as it once was. I have nothing but admiration for the city of Milwaukee and for the staff of the NCPRD. I do not, however, believe that the structure of the NCPRD, as it is now constituted, can best serve the people of our whole area. I wish there was some other way to do it, but perhaps a dissolution of the NCPRD and recreation of districts that are customized to the particularities of incorporated and unincorporated areas is the best one for the future of the people who are served by the NCPRD. That may not be a happy statement to make here. I appreciate the work that the DAC does and that all of you do. And I thank you for hearing me.
Jan Carruthers and Sasha Renier. Renier.
Good too, that's fine. Thanks for the
Thank you. I'm Jan Carruthers. Oh, I turned it off? Wonderful. I'm Jan Carruthers. I live in Jennings Lodge in District 1. I just first of all want to tell the district staff and the DAC how incredibly exciting it is to hear a report like that, and to win so many of the refresh awards. And thank you everyone for voting for that. I do not have a recommendation of dissolution or staying together or any of that. I am interested, though, that when the original potential proposed distribution of the Metro grant money many years ago, those were all proposed ideas. They were not promised. And so the assumption that there's a promise of that money going exactly the way it is, I think maybe has gotten reinforced over time, maybe not accurately. I think that because of the systems plan doing such a good job of laying out a 20-year plan, it may be possible over time to get all of it. But it's going to take an enormous effort of joint commitment to increasing the operating funding. And that will take the entire district voting because they see the enormous value. And so while in our area, we get to see a little bit more, it's visible because things are happening right now. This all is happening right now. It's very exciting. On the other hand, in the outlying districts, they don't know. And so I think it's very important for us to think long-term over what it's going to take to actually create the money for Milwaukee to do their phased plan for a great regional park. And for the rest of the district that do not have adequate park, and it's going to take a huge act of government will and community will and value observed and appreciated. Thank you.
Sasha Grenier.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sasha Grenier. I'm actually a DAC alternate, a new DAC alternate, as well as a member of the Parks and Rec Board in Milwaukee and a public servant for the state of Oregon. But I'm here today on behalf of myself, my family, and the countless families that I've been speaking with over the years on the issue of Milwaukee Bay Park. I'm here because I care deeply about Milwaukee Bay Park and its construction, not because I live on the Milwaukee side of my neighborhood, but because I live in this community and want a place for all of us, regardless of ability, regardless of location, regardless of age, can access safely. When I talk to others, parents in my kids' school, PTA, when I talk to people in the events that I attend in Milwaukee and beyond in the entire district, I'm reminded that we all care about this park, especially those who have children and especially those who care for elderly adults, such as myself. We all want a place where we can gather in an intergenerational space. And I know we all know this, but we all share one river. We all share one Willamette River. We share one access point there. And I know this is a great opportunity right now for us to develop something amazing together. But instead, it feels like we're squandering this opportunity. I was here at the June 24th Board of Directors meeting, and it was sad to see how we're being pitted against each other, us versus them, unincorporated versus incorporated Milwaukee, time and time again. And this is a tired political strategy to weaken communities. And I see this happening now, and it saddens me. I was here with my son, with my mom, with my family, and there were several of us in the overflow room that I hope you all saw. But unfortunately, this political grandstanding that we're seeing is costing us. Developing Milwaukee Bay Park does not change the short or midterm goals. It does not take away from the parks developed in unincorporated Clackamas County. And this political move is costing us taxpayers a lot of money. Due to delays, the project has cost $2 million in project grants that have expired, which is money that our community could have gotten back from federal taxes that we pay. And if I understand correctly, We have $2 million in grants also available that we will again lose if we wait until the fall to begin this work. This amount of mismanagement of public funds should raise alarm bells for this committee. Over 1,300 people helped develop the current plan for Milwaukee Bay Park over 8 years ago. When I talk to people, they always ask, oh yeah, what happened to that? How's that going? Why is that taking so long? And I hope that I can give them a hopeful way, a hopeful vision for how government can work together to get things done. I urge the DAC to recommend that the NCRPD Board of Directors sign the IGA with the City of Milwaukee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sasha, I didn't realize you were here. We have a name tag or we have a nameplate for you and we wanted you to be here at the table with us.
So I was here as an individual today.
Oh, okay, but we have a name tag and so you can either sit up there or choose it to sit there. I'll let you. Are there any online comments?
There are not. We have 6 online attendees. It does not look like anyone has their hand raised.
Okay, with no more cards and no raised hands, comments are now closed. All right, so next on the agenda is the discussion agenda. I am going to turn the meeting over to Director Selly for her presentation on the IGAs, and then there will be time for questions and discussion.
Thank you, Chair Shaw. Hello again, everybody. I'm here with Jeff Munz, Assistant County Counsel, and we're here this evening to brief you on the proposed amended Master Cooperative IGA and the proposed Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 construction funding IGA. I'll begin with a briefing on the financial health of NCPRD, then walk through key terms of the 2 agreements. This information was presented to the NCPRD board on June 2nd at a policy work session and also was presented by me on June 24th to the NCPRD board at their board meeting. IGA negotiations began in January of 2025 at the request of Mayor Beatty to negotiate an agreement for the construction funding of Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3. It's a goal of the Milwaukee City Council to build that park by 2027. The NCPRD board agreed to negotiations if those negotiations also included updating the Master Cooperative Agreement, which governs the operations and maintenance and investment by NCPRD at Milwaukee-owned parks and the Milwaukee-owned Milwaukee Community Center. In April, the Milwaukee City Council approved the IGAs without NCPRD board agreement. But since that time, district and Milwaukee staff have continued negotiations on the unresolved field terms. The IGAs that are included as attachment B in your agenda packet include language that is supported by both NCPRD and by Milwaukee staff. The major difference between the IGAs in attachment B in your packet and the IGAs approved by the Milwaukee City Council in April is really, the major difference is the language around utilities and fees in Section 2, maintenance of park facilities. There have been 2 major considerations throughout the course of these negotiations: district finances and district-wide equity or parity. That is, equity or parity between the City of Milwaukee, which is 19% of the district land area, and the unincorporated area, which is the balance of that, the 81% of the land area in the district. In terms of district finances, over half of the district general fund is generated by our fixed permanent tax rate, which I talk a lot about, which is 54 cents per thousand of assessed value. This tax rate has never increased since the inception of the district in 1990, and the district has never issued a levy or a bond. The district has the lowest tax rate of the 5 major park and rec districts in the state of Oregon. This 1990 tax rate has just not kept pace with inflation, as taxes typically grow at 3%, and our electricity costs alone have increased by an average of 9% each year over the past 5 years. This structural funding issue will require ongoing budget reductions if we are to balance annual general fund revenues with our general fund expenditures. Ongoing budget reductions will avoid acceleration of the fiscal cliff that's forecasted in fiscal year 2031-32, but it will not prevent it. If we reach that fiscal cliff, there'll be significant budget cuts and service reductions that will result in community center closures, closure of park amenities, and minimizing, if not eliminating, park maintenance. We've already made significant budget reductions consistent with the guidance of our 5-year financial forecast and will continue to do so. Between this fiscal year and next fiscal year, we have reduced the budget by 1.7 million. And our forecasted reduction for fiscal year 27-28 is $650,000. To address this structural financial issue, NCPRD staff are working with the Trust for Public Land. We talked about that on June 10th to advance a 5-year local option levy that would generate more operational revenue. This would not only push out the fiscal cliff well into the future, but as importantly, would deliver on the wants and needs of the community that are documented in the adopted 2025 system plan, including most of the near-term capital projects listed in that plan. It would restore maintenance across the district and irrigation to parks, and it would restore recreation programs and events that we've seen cut over the past few years. However, based on polling that we conducted in May, there is not sufficient voter support for a November 2026 ballot measure. Staff will continue to educate the community about the need for additional operational funding and will continue to work with the Trust for Public Land to identify the right time to put together a funding measure for the ballot. I do want to share with you that that could be as late as 2028. But having said all of that, the NCPRD board really needs to weigh in on this and consider the timing of a levy later this summer at their board meeting. Whatever the board decides in terms of the timing of a future levy, support of a levy from the city of Milwaukee and from other community leaders across the district will be critical to passage of a levy, because right now there is so much sensitivity to increases in the cost of living and particularly tax sensitivity. As I mentioned, the second major factor in the negotiations has been district-wide equity or parity. Of the 106,000 district residents, 20% reside within the city of Milwaukee and 80% reside within the unincorporated area. Since the inception of the district, 17% of the resources generated through taxes have been paid for by Milwaukee residents, and 75% have been paid by the unincorporated area residents. The balance of that percentage was paid by the Happy Valley residents, which are no longer part of the district. Of the 38 developed parks, natural areas, trails, and greenways in the district, 16 are located within Milwaukee, and they are also owned by Milwaukee, and 19 are located within the unincorporated area and owned by NCPRD. So even though Milwaukee is 19% of the total land area of the district, 43% of the land area that NCPRD operates and maintains is in Milwaukee and owned by the city of Milwaukee. For this reason, the 2025 system plan near-term capital project list, we also refer to that as the 0 to 5-year list, calls for 3 new parks in the unincorporated area of the district. Construction of one of those new parks is going to occur soon in the Jennings Lodge community. But construction of additional parks, as I mentioned earlier this evening, can't occur until we receive more operational resources so that we have the necessary maintenance for those new assets. So given this framing, district finances and district-wide equity or parity, I'll detail a few of the key terms that are highlighted on attachment A in your packet. And I'm going to give Jessica a moment to see if she can call that up for those that might be viewing this by Zoom.
Which one is it that you wanted to pull up?
So it's actually attachment A, and I wonder if, it's this. But it's the key deal terms, it's the summary,
I think that's the last.
okay. There you go. Excellent. It just has a different attachment number. So as long as that's the attachment number in the packet, that's fine. It just doesn't correlate with the memo. So I should call that out for you. So I'm going to review this document, and there's a lot in here. So if you can just jot down your questions and hold them until the end, that would be really appreciated. So in the amended master cooperative agreement, this is that overarching agreement for the district. There are 3 key deal terms with financial impacts to NCPRD. First, NCPRD has agreed to be responsible for capital improvements and capital repair and replacement at Milwaukee parks, natural areas, and trails. The timing of new improvements will be consistent with the approved 2025 system plan capital list, with one exception. North Clackamas Park, it is currently, I should say, a 0 to 5 or near-term priority within the 2025 system plan. If these IGAs are approved, we would actually swap North Clackamas Parks with Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 in the system plan. So Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 becomes a near-term or 0 to 5 year priority, and North Clackamas Park becomes a midterm or 5 to 10 year priority. This change is intended to maintain equity or parity between Milwaukee and the unincorporated area. And the rationale here is that the improvements envisioned for both of those parks are relatively similar in terms of scope and scale. And also, North Clackamas Park was prioritized over Milwaukee Bay Park, I should add, in the system plan because it is the most visited park in the district. It has ball fields that are regularly programmed, a large playground, a large picnic shelter, a rose garden, and it's adjacent to the Milwaukee Community Center. Second, NCPRD would waive special use permit administrative fees intended for cost recovery for government and community partners that host free and public events in parks and natural areas in the district. This waiver would be available district-wide with an estimated financial impact to NCPRD of up to $3,000 annually for those permits anticipated in Milwaukee. I presented this waiver request yesterday to the NCPRD board for their consideration, and that will go to them at an upcoming business meeting for their full consideration. Milwaukee staff have shared that they're willing to concede on this term, but I have continued to recommend that it be included within the agreement because it's a positive move from my perspective to support community and be responsive to community groups that have told all of NCPRD staff, many of us have heard this, that the cost of events continue to rise and it's becoming difficult for them to sponsor these types of events, given these administrative costs on top of the costs associated with the event. So especially in an era of diminishing service levels, free and public events organized by the community really are a cost-effective means of activating district parks and natural areas. Third, you'll see in section 2 that district staff and Milwaukee staff have jointly proposed new language regarding city fees and utility rates that will require additional negotiation between district and Milwaukee staff by July 2027. There are really 2 issues that require negotiation. One, Milwaukee has added fees to city utility invoices, and residents have received, have had these fees added to their utility invoices too, that fund municipal services such as public safety and street maintenance. But in NCPRD's case, effectively, we would be taking taxpayer funds intended for parks and recreation and would be diverting those resources to fund basically other Milwaukee City services. The second issue is that as of July of 2025, the district is now being charged higher rates for city utilities such as stormwater and sewer. These higher rates are consequential. For example, prior to July of 2025, the district paid WES, Water Environment Services, $277 a month for surface stormwater. For that same level of service, Milwaukee billed the district $2,100 a month. For that, again, same level of service. So for 2 locations alone, the additional cost of these fees and city utility rates increased the district's bill by $24,000 for just 6 months of service. So there is concern that on an ongoing basis, we would need to actually reduce our budget further to accommodate these higher rates. I do want to make sure that everybody is clear that as a good faith measure, Milwaukee staff have agreed to revert to status quo before these fee and rate increases were implemented while we negotiate mutually agreeable changes to their city code. From my perspective, that would be removing fees that fund other city services and providing a lower government rate for utilities. But there is more to come on that because we have, as proposed in the current language, we would have until July of 2027 as staff to work through those details. There are 2 key financial impacts of the master cooperative agreement for Milwaukee. If Milwaukee leaves the district, they must pay the depreciated value of district investments in capital improvements and capital repair and replacement. This is effectively Milwaukee paying a portion of the share of what the district would invest. Also, Milwaukee has agreed to take responsibility for all capital repair and replacement, such as roof replacement or HVAC replacement at the Milwaukee Community Center, which Milwaukee owns. NCPRD will continue to operate and maintain that facility, replace light bulbs, replace furnace filters, do ongoing small maintenance projects. The district's current estimated capital repair and replacement needs at that facility is approximately $1 million over the next 10 years. Last night, Milwaukee staff cited that it would be a little over $1 million for 5 years. It's actually 10 years. But I do want to say that there are a lot of facts and figures, there are a lot of moving parts, and I know that they put that information forward with the best intentions. So I only correct it for the record, but I feel like we're working collaboratively and we're doing our very best as staff to stay on top of these numbers and present them to you as factually as we can. NCPRD staff, I will also say, have recommended that if these IGAs are approved, that Milwaukee undertakes a building condition assessment so that they can really refine that number and then also stage those improvements over time at the right time to manage their budget. In the Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 construction funding IGA, so this is that second agreement. There's also financial give and take between NCPRD and Milwaukee. NCPRD would provide $4.9 million of the funding needed for construction in Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3, which could be as high as $12 million if construction begins in 2027. Milwaukee would be responsible for funding the balance of the capital project. So anything above $4.9 million, Milwaukee would be responsible for. The funds proposed, these $4.9 million in funds, they're not general fund dollars and they can't be used to fund NCPRD operations. Only construction of new amenities in existing parks or new parks, and they would not take resources away from the unincorporated area park improvements called for in the 2025 system plan near-term capital project list. I'll detail the source of those funds that total again $4.9 million. These funds would include $902,000 of Metro local share funds, which is an estimated 20% of NCPRD's total allocation from Metro, again reflective of Milwaukee's total population in the district. I received a question, which is a good one, from the DAC as to, okay, so NCPRD received a little over $4 million from Metro in local share funds. How, if we allocate $902,000 of those funds, we also have funds allocated for the Jennings project, we allocated some of those funds for the project here at Concord. 1.59 million remain unallocated. So I hope that answers the question from the DAC. The second source of funds towards that 4.9 million is a Metro grant of $658,000 that is actually dedicated to the project and can't be used elsewhere. The third source of funds is up to 3.3 million of system development charge funds from the Milwaukee portion of Zone 1. These funds were actually collected from new development or major redevelopment in Milwaukee and can only be used again to build new amenities in existing parks or new parks. Can't be used for operations, maintenance, recreation, or older adult services. So they're not general fund dollars. 3.9 million is expected in the Zone 1 Milwaukee SDC fund by the end of this current fiscal year 26-27. So we actually will have some funds remaining if our forecast is correct, and we think that forecast is rather conservative in the near term for district-wide investments. Second, Milwaukee would be responsible for funding ongoing operations and maintenance and programming of Milwaukee Bay Park within 24 months of executing the intergovernmental agreement. Annual operations and maintenance of the park without the new improvements is estimated at $65,000 in 2026 dollars. So the financial impact of that delay is about $130,000. Having said that, without this agreement in place, NCPRD would need to continue to operate and maintain that park at an annual cost, again, of $65,000 in 2026 dollars. So the transfer of park operations to Milwaukee would decrease NCPRD's annual operations and maintenance costs. This concludes my remarks. Before I pass the presentation baton to Jeff Munns, I will also add that my staff recommendation respectfully to the DAC, and I've also shared this with the board, is to support approval of the IGAs.
Thank you. All right, so first I have to start with this disclaimer. I work for Clackamas County and I give legal advice to them, and nothing I say today should be construed as legal advice to you. So if I could say it fast, like in a pharmaceutical plant, that might be better. But anyway, I've been asked to talk a little bit about some of the issues that we have related to these IGAs, as well as the district as a whole, and questions that continue to come up from many of you, as well as other questions that we receive. First is, why does it matter as far as withdrawing territory from the district under ORS 198 or ORS 222? There's two methods. One is initiated by a petition to the district board, or in this case, the county board of county commissioners, sitting as essentially a boundary commission, to review a petition to withdraw territory, and they would be reviewing it to determine if it's feasible to still provide services or to provide services to the territory to be withdrawn. That's something that hasn't come to the board yet, so we don't know what that petition exactly would mean and how it would be analyzed, but that's the framework, the default for withdrawing territory from districts in Oregon. And the other is ORS 222, which allows cities to unilaterally withdraw territory from a district if the other provisions of 222 apply. And what those are in this case, the provision that's in the agreement currently is 222.524, which really then cites a different subsection of that chapter of the statutes that applies when an area of the district becomes incorporated or a city annexes territory of the district and wishes to withdraw that territory and provide the services. And that was agreed to by the parties back in 2008, and they were in the IGA. And the reason it matters is also in ORS 222, there's a section 530 that provides that if that occurs, a city could withdraw that territory and also receive a equitable share of the district's assets that was related to the assessed value of the territory withdrawn, and its intended use and where it's located. This is often used by fire districts when a city annexes an area of a rural fire district, annexes a fire station, and is going to serve that community. They would oftentimes take that station, the employees, and then provide the services. But there's a lot of provisions in these that statutes that deal with, what's equitable for the area, how they're best going to serve it, and it does apply to parks and recreation districts. NCPRD is a county service district, however, but provides park and recreation services. This isn't something that the Oregon courts have ever looked at. It's a statute passed in late 1940s, and we are dealing with a lot of new interpretation here. Is part of the reason why the litigation between the parties has taken a while and gone up on appeal and is currently at the Supreme Court. So that's the two different paths for withdrawal territory. And a bit about why we have this disagreement going to the courts, because ORS 222 doesn't apply to NCPRD. We don't have authority to enter in that agreement because our method of withdrawal is on ORS 198. And so that's what's present before the Supreme Court. The ORS 198 path also allows for citizens to vote if they disagree with the decision of the Board of County Commissioners. If they choose to allow withdrawal or deny withdrawal, it only takes 100 people to petition in writing for that, and then that can go to a vote. So the other question that's come up is, why don't we just remove that provision from the contract, the IGA, and move on with the regular path of withdrawal? Partly, mostly, because it's an agreement, and the Milwaukee wishes to keep that provision in the agreement. And if we did remove it, it would move the appeal essentially, would end it, because that's what the whole case is about. Is we've agreed to this, can it be exercised, or is it an unenforceable provision of an agreement? So that's why it's still there. And so if, as you negotiate, as you'll see in the cooperative agreement, there's a term in there that, we will, after all appeals are done, whatever the state of the law is, then that will be the method for withdrawal of territory. So we can't remove it now because it would end the appeal and wouldn't get an answer from the court. And the city of Milwaukee wishes to have it in there, and we can't modify it without that unless we terminate the agreement, and that's not where we're at. So finally, another question we've had a number of times is why can't the city council be bound to support a levy in the future? That's because there's a provision in Oregon law that doesn't allow for a legislative body, whether it be a city council, the Board of County Commissioners, to have the legislative authority bound in the future. Future board could change their mind. If you have a contract in place that has a certain requirement for performance or payment, those are things that are enforceable in the future to another board, but not something to take a future act separate from the performance under that current agreement. So that's why we can't do that, and that's where it wouldn't be enforceable essentially. And we don't like putting things in our agreements that are not enforceable, but sometimes we find them, and that's why we're importing those other issues. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on the agreements or what I just said, anything.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to open it up for comments, discussion, questions. Okay, Grover.
Thank you. I'm wondering, this notice is made there about the agreement and the like. And I don't know whether this goes to here or you, but does the city of Milwaukee, owning all their own parks, do they have a specific, other than that rule says there's up to a 20%, do they have any investment over these last years into the other parts of the district? Given that their funds all go for their own parks and there isn't, to my, the question is, are there funds that they have invested for the good of the district as opposed to for the maintenance of their own parks, et cetera? Because that's a key piece that you just said, well, it could be of the whole value, and I don't know where they've been investing in the value of NCPRD in that regard.
I'll take it first. Okay. Thanks for that question, Grover. So if I understand your question, you're wondering if City of Milwaukee funds have been allocated to parts of the district outside of the City of Milwaukee. So my understanding is that probably the only funds that have been invested from Milwaukee in the unincorporated area are those Zone 1 Milwaukee System Development Charge Funds. Again, system development charge funds that were collected within the City of Milwaukee from development or major redevelopment within the city boundary. Some of those funds were actually, you'll recall, designated to the Concord project, Concord Park and Community Center project last year. And the total project cost for the park and the community center here at Concord for planning, design, and construction was 18.45 million. And all of the SDC funds from across the district were tapped to a small degree, to a larger degree, zone 2, the zone within which this project is located, was tapped. So 1.134 was allocated from zone 1 Milwaukee SDC fund. So I believe those are the only resources I can think of, unless Jeff has some additional resources to discuss.
Sure, I'm not aware. I think I would actually defer to the mayor if she recalls if the city has invested any other further funds in other district properties. I'm not aware of it though, but I just don't know what to assume.
It would just be STCs. I don't think there would be any other category of investments by Milwaukee. I don't know whether funds have been used for any of the improvements at the aquatic center. That would be the only other question in my.
So then, if I understand correctly, they have only been for regional assets, correct? The aquatic center possibly, and the community center here.
If we're talking about Milwaukee's Zone 1 SDC funds being used within the unincorporated area, yes, they would just, the only way that we could tap those funds for unincorporated area assets would be if the project is considered a district-wide or region-wide asset.
Great, thank you. So there were not specifically into the unincorporated, it was into the assets available to everyone in the district, the aquatic center, this community center, etc.
To my knowledge, it's just the Concord Park and Community Center.
Oh.
I don't, the aquatic park was built very early in the district. And so I can't really speak to that. I could try to do some research for you, but I can't really speak to that.
So things like the roof replacement and the pump replacement, those are maintenance and they cannot be, they're not SDC eligible.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a really important question. Thank you, Mayor Beatty. So system development charge funds are a very specific color of money, as we call them. You can only use those funds to basically expand the capacity of the asset to accommodate growth. And so what that means is you could put a pickleball court into an existing park because you're adding a park amenity that expands the capacity of that park to serve more people. But we can't use those funds for capital repair and replacement. So we can't use those funds for a roof replacement. We can't use it for HVAC. We can't use it to basically just fix an asset. We can't use it to pave a parking lot in a park. We could use it to expand the capacity of the parking lot. So that's a very important question. Thank you.
So speaking of SDC funds, I'm curious, if the 3.9 goes to Milwaukee, how much is left in the SDC bucket? Zone 2, zone 3, and whatever zone 1. And it doesn't have to be broken down. I'm just wondering how much SDC funds are left. But I can understand if you don't have that right at your fingertips.
Well, thank you for that question. I apologize for not memorizing the entire budget document. I love your confidence in me. Okay, I will give you a partial answer, and hopefully that's satisfactory, and I'm happy to provide any additional analysis, because we do have that analysis, and I can provide that. So I do want to be transparent, jokes aside. So of the 4.9 million that is proposed to be allocated for Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 from NCPRD funds, one of those buckets is SDC funds, and we're actually proposing up to 3.3 million of SDC funds. By the end of the current fiscal year, our budget forecast shows that we will actually grow that fund up to 3.9 million. So we'll have, roughly $600,000 remaining in that fund, even after we allocate resources to the Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 project. And that's really important because there are some community scale projects that are on the near-term list. And so we don't want to completely exhaust that fund. 70th and Monroe property is a great example.
I also think that, Kia said earlier that, that 3.9 million was a conservative estimate. I do think it's a conservative estimate. Milwaukee has 200 apartments going in at, Hillside, has 2 smaller downtown apartment complexes coming in, has a lot of sort of middle housing and townhomes coming in. I think not all of those will pay SDCs in this fiscal year, but a fair amount of them will. So I think the number is probably going to be higher than that 3.9.
But I guess my question though was about zone 2 and zone 3. It wasn't so much what, I guess some of the conversation that's come up is that allocating this money to Milwaukee will put the district in unstable footing. And so when you talk about the whole SDC bucket, if 3.9 goes to Milwaukee, what's left?
Okay, thank you for that question. So just to clarify, it would be up to 3.3 million, not 3.9. Sorry, that's okay. We're throwing out a lot of numbers here. And so 3.9 million is if we didn't do anything to that fund, we expect to grow that fund over the course of this current fiscal year and grow it up to 3.9. So, just simple math, 3.9 minus 3.3, you get a little over $500,000. So, but you're asking a really good question. And this is also another really good way to understand is the system development charge zones. So, there are 3 zones within the NCPRD boundary. And to complicate things, zone 1 is actually split into 2 sub areas. It's split into the Milwaukee zone. And just to the east of that is the urban growth management area, and that's another zone. So when we receive funds from a project in the urban growth management area, the second sub area of zone 1, we actually sequester those funds in a separate account so that we are tracking that they are from the urban growth management area. For a neighborhood park that serves neighborhood community members, and we all know that neighborhood parks can be accessed by anyone, but typically neighborhood parks have a smaller sort of reach. Typically those projects cannot be funded by money outside of that zone. So for example, Concord Park is a community scale park. So we were able to actually tap all of the SDC zones for resources because it's community scale. Justice property will not be community scale, it's a neighborhood park. So we'll only be able to tap zone 3 SDC funds. So you kind of see how it works. So the only way that we'd be able to tap zone 1 Milwaukee SDC funds is if we're funding a community scale project, another community center or a community scale park. Does that answer your question?
Jeanette?
Yeah, thank you. This is a different topic and I'd like to ask a couple questions in sequence. The first is for the cooperative agreement. This is amendment number 2. So am I understanding correctly that it was originally written in 2008, amended in 2013, and then this amendment is number 2?
That's correct.
And so there's a sort of original parent document, and this is amending that. And does it have 10 sections generally? 11?
Yeah. This is just the language in the amendment is, of course, just the new language and what it's changing. And so there are pieces that aren't being aren't being changed, and so oftentimes when we have these types of significant amendments, what I'll do is I'll create a restatement of the agreement that isn't, you know, the amendment is the binding agreement, but for everyone's use, I'll restate it so that for staff and everybody involved, like, it incorporates all those amendments, you can actually read it and make sense.
I appreciate that.
So once we're done, that's something I can provide. Yes.
Okay, so I guess my second question, and thank you, is there still going to be a provision to have it looked at every approximately 5 years?
It should be, that's the advice from our office all the time, is that we don't like these agreements that remain unchanged for a long time because the practice changes, people, operations evolve, and you need to keep it current.
Little tune up, right?
It's very helpful, and it keeps everybody, you know, looking at it and making sure that it works for them.
Oh, excellent point, thank you. I didn't see anything about sort of who, there's discussion about the maintenance responsibilities and assets, but not as much about, like risk or insurance, and I'm assuming the county and the city of Milwaukee are probably both like self-insured. It just that, do the current IGAs really, tackle who does what when?
We're not really doing that in this type of operations agreement, you know.
Oh, it's so separate from,
Well,
okay,
the city owns their properties and they insure them. And, you know, I can't remember how all that works exactly at this time. Yeah, the county is self-insured, and so we insure NCPRD in their operations. So if our operations causes damage to Milwaukee's property, then, you know, that would be something we work through with our coverage or, you know, our risk fund and the city. But yeah, this is intended more for operations.
No set recreational.
Yes, there's also, recreational immunity for claims that come from, you know, the outside.
that's helpful to understand, thank you. Kind of, like I said, a side topic, but do you?
And Laura, you had your thing up, was your
I
question
think
answered?
it was kind of answered. I might come back to it. Yeah, actually, I guess, can I just clarify? And yeah, thank you everyone for being here and talking about this tough topic, but I
And
wanted
Laura,
to know.
do you use-
Oh, yes,
Oh, just-
sorry, I'm not just for interested. Okay, I just wanted to clarify on the SDCs, I know we're like laboring these points, but the 3.3 that is set aside, those are from Milwaukee, correct? Okay, and then historically have zone 2 and 3 provided as those are, and I really don't like this language of them Milwaukee, but I'm just curious. Have zone 2 and 3 provided SDC funds to projects that are in Milwaukee, like the Milwaukee Community Center and North Clackamas, part of those regional assets?
So to clarify, the funds in the Milwaukee Zone 1 were collected from development or major redevelopment in the district. So I just want to kind of continue to reiterate that those aren't necessarily taxes paid by Milwaukee residents.
Yeah.
Those are actually charges that often builders or developers pay. But they were collected within Milwaukee's geographic area. And then your second question is about, have any funds from Milwaukee Zone 1 been invested in other? Oh, okay. Have any funds from Zone 2 or Zone 3 been invested in Milwaukee? I don't have deep history on that. We might have to get back to you unless, Erin, do you have some thoughts to share?
I don't. I think that's something that we would need to look at. But you identified Milwaukee Community Center and North Clackamas Park. Those would be the most likely recipients for that. So we can take a look at that and get back to the group.
Thank you. I will note that a significant amount of funding came out of the Zone 1 Urban Growth Management Area funds for the planning and design, the 50% design of Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3. And that was because actually in the early years of the system development charge collection, Milwaukee Milwaukee's portion of Zone 1 didn't actually generate a lot of resources. It's quickly generating resources now as there's been an uptick in development. But actually the urban growth management area where the development agency has been active doing a lot of development projects, they actually have generated more resources historically, and those resources were allocated to the design of Milwaukee Day Park. So my knowledge, there haven't been any Milwaukee Zone 1 SDC funds that have been invested in the planning or design of those 50% drawings from Milwaukee Day Park Phase 3.
Great, thank you.
Director's office.
Yeah, I'm not sure Kia is prepared to, and it sounds like from Erin's response, maybe she's not, but I think it's important to put some historical context into the history of SDCs. So, I would say much of the life of the district, the majority of the life of the district had no zones. So that's more of a recent change. And that was done basically on the request of Happy Valley, and Happy Valley was part of the district. So if you look at the history of the SDC, they were district-wide SDCs. And in the 2014, the second to the last master IGA, not master IGA, master planning process, I think it was 2018 or 19. The recommendation was to take away all the STC zones and make it flat, like it originally was. And this system plan also made that same recommendation. So I think it's important maybe to do some homework and look at what the STCs were generated back in, let's say up to 2012, 2014, before things changed a little bit, and understand where that generation of SDCs was and where those monies went, right? And so I think it was important to so I do recall reading all that material. I do recall seeing areas where there were no SDCs generated. And they weren't zones, but they were basically areas. And so that there's an ebb and flow of that. But I think it's important to know where those dollars went. Instead of just taking a snapshot of what this short window of SDC zoning is currently.
So thank you for that historical context, Director Savas. I just want to add that we are actually beginning work to update the system development charge methodology. And so we'll be looking at the multiple zones, we'll be looking at the rates, we'll be looking at a range of different topics around the SDC program. So we could go deeper into that history as kind of a contextual piece. And also from just my professional experience, that without an approved kind of district-wide capital plan, it is important to have a zoning of SDCs. But now that we have a plan and we have timing of projects, it becomes less important because now it's just about funding those projects. It's less about each area keeping their resources because they want to secure them for future projects, if that makes sense. I'd also like to invite Erin Rion to add anything about that SDC methodology project update, since she is leading that effort.
Yeah, thank you. So just a quick note on schedule for that. We have just started the initial data analysis of that work with the consultant team, but we will be digging into that late summer and in the fall, and likely bringing that to the DAC probably fall or winter to have a more robust discussion about all of these topics with you all.
Wilbur?
Hi, I have a few questions and I want to make sure that other people want to talk, they can go that, but I've spent quite a amount of time reading this stuff, and really after decades of working on this project one way or the other, started in 2015 and have been well into it. I have some concerns and I'm really concerned where we go as a district. Because I know I came on this and it was a big deal. In fact, that woman right there, Thelma, really made it clear. That's why I don't like standing this thing.
You're supposed to put it down when it's.
Well, I failed. Does that mean I lose my turn?
Well, let me think on that.
That we're a district, there's nothing about, well, sub area 1 or sub area 2, etc. it's for the good of the district, and that's why I was so thrilled that we did the system plan. And that system plan was, I mean, we spent nearly, what, $500,000 on that, and it took nearly 2 years, and does anybody recognize who the people who did that are? I mean, they are internationally acclaimed. They did Vancouver, they did Houston, they did Salt Lake, Utah, I mean, et cetera, and the list goes on and on. They're not rookies. They actually made recommendations. So, and we paid for it and we put time and energy into it. So using that is really important to me. And also when we sit here that the budget we just finished, we cut 1.3 million out of it. And the budget that we are now starting, we're cutting another 0.4 million out of that. We don't have enough funding to do what we need to do. So we keep cutting and cutting and cutting. So I want to ask a question. My understanding of how Metro Share works, and I have the document where they advertise in all the parts, and I got a bunch of quotes from it. But in truth, I'd like to ask, do the residents of Milwaukee have to pay that tax twice?
I have no idea.
Okay. From what it says in all the Metro material, they don't. It's every municipality on a per capita basis, their residents pay into that $92 million bond, and then it's distributed per capita back to those entities. And so Milwaukee got their $1.11 million for what the Milwaukee residents put in. And then there's the other side, which is the non-Milwaukee side, and that's where the 4.5 million comes in. And so I have some difficulty when we are already so cash short that should be even asked for to go forward on the Milwaukee Bay Park, given it will then mean there are parks like the Justice property that has been up for sale twice, I do believe, but it's still, that's the only park you have anywhere near you, right? So I mean, it's like that will be held up, as I understand it, if we don't have cash. So to give that cash away, it's a difficulty for me. And with the idea that my understanding is, using last year as an example, $500,000 was spent for maintenance on parks in the city of Milwaukee. That's more than the taxes that came from the city of Milwaukee. That came out of this, reading these materials, but that's $500,000 that we can't spend on trying to find some sort of parity. I have to say parity, not parody. Somebody was making fun of that earlier, but parity on being able to be a district-wide. There is a desert out there. That's what the experts pointed out. And we need to figure out a way to address that as a primary. So I would love to have the Milwaukee Bay Park finished. I just don't want to look at having to penalize everybody else to move that forward, given the lacking of funding. So that's why a levy is so important. And I don't know, but I've heard enough side comments that there's a concern that people in Milwaukee may not support a levy. I don't know that for a fact, but I've heard it from way too many times, too many places. So if the Milwaukee intent is to be able to start the planning to do the other 50%, these big chunks of money can't be used for that, with a possible exception of that 901, but there is already money. When I read all the previous budgets proposals, it was proposed funding. Like, where is the 1.1 million that Milwaukee got from Metro Share? That's an example. So their planning shouldn't take, my understanding, for that 50%, it won't take all of that money. So they have the money to start that process and actually find out how much it's going to cost, and then be able to wade into where they're going to get the rest of the money. Because it's, in my guess, it's going to be $8 to $10 million. That's going to be more to come. So that's a secondary point.
Okay, Grover, I'm just gonna say, is there any response you want to make? Was there
There's not a question. I'm
Not making
actually,
statements.
other than
Okay.
knowing whether the taxes were paid twice by the
Okay,
residents of Milwaukee.
I guess it was your assertion that if we do the IGAs, it'll be to the detriment to the rest of the district. That was what,
$902,000 and the reality that we don't have any assurance, we need to do that levy. Will Milwaukee support the levy or not? It's an unknown reality. So that's those two pieces together. So that's the risk that going forward on that plan. If we could resolve that risk, that'd be great, but we don't have any resolution as we sit now that I'm aware of. In addition to that, the park deficit NCPRD unincorporated residents have been waiting for decades for parks that they can walk within 10 minutes to. And the 10-minute walking is a widely adopted standard, originally established and promoted by a national movement by guess who? The Trust for Public Land. It's so great to have discovered that. In a partnership with the National Recreation and Parks Association and the Urban Land Institute, and additionally the Center for Disease Control, as well as the national parks, all use that being able to walk in 10 minutes is good for your health for lots of reasons. So we have so many places that don't have that. It's not widespread in NCPRD, the district. So Milwaukee came in with 16 parks. So it's a little area has all of that. Next thing is the NCPRD district-wide 20-year system plan. I already said that, never mind. The idea that we can start saving money, like $130,000 over 2 years or $65,000 a year, offset by that we're paying $500,000 to do the maintenance. And when I read through, it was about, if I understood correctly, in the IGA, it is to still maintain the standard of maintenance that eats up that kind of money for the 16 parks in Milwaukee. So that's the question I want to ask. Is that in fact true? That's what I read in there.
In the, in amendment to the cooperative agreement, master cooperative agreement, we actually have modified the level of service. So, currently in the master cooperative agreement, there's a higher level of service for maintenance within the city of Milwaukee. We've actually, again, modified that in the amendment number 2, so that it's consistent with the rest of the district. And as district resources diminish until we're able to put a levy on the ballot, that maintenance level of service may continue to diminish as well. And we have the opportunity within the current agreement, again, amendment number 2, to continue to modify the level of service within Milwaukee consistent with the rest of the district. So the idea here is that we don't want to provide a higher level of service to just part of the district. We want to have equity or parity across the district in terms of the level of service for maintenance. So I would say that is one of the key benefits of amendment number 2.
Okay, well, sort of in keeping with one of the public comments about having the mismatch of having a city that has an IGA that has standards that have to be met, and then the rest of us who don't. That's one of the. Yes.
The standards are now consistent.
Okay, good.
So
in the new one.
in the amendment number 2, yeah.
Okay, so then my question is, the $500,000, because it was from 600,000 to 1 million that I read in one place, and then I've had conversations that talk to, so I say around $500,000. Is that change, because that was a brand new, that reality until this packet came out was not knowledgeable. I mean, we've been asking for that for as long as I've been involved, no fault of yours, but to finally have that number, will that change have a significant impact of the $500,000, which is being drawn from the unincorporated area and put into the Milwaukee maintenance? Is that likely to change?
So I think what he's asking is with the lowered maintenance for the city of Milwaukee,
how will that reduce what it's costing to maintain their parks?
What it's costing to subsidize their parking.
Yeah, I would say that, yes. We are effectively out of compliance with our current agreement, to be honest with you, and I've talked
With
with
current
the,
IGA agreement.
with the current, that's right, because we have NCPRD has reduced the level of maintenance and irrigation for all parks across the district. And while we are out of compliance with our master cooperative agreement with Milwaukee, it's my understanding that their staff understand why we are doing this. And I have not received any pushback with regard to that. There has been acceptance of that because we are making these changes, not because we are trying to in any way not provide an equitable level of service to Milwaukee versus the unincorporated area, but we are actually trying to just reduce our budget. And so we are actually out of compliance with the current agreement.
Okay,
Okay, so Grover, it's 7 o'clock now.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay, it's a continuation of that same question. Do you want to say something? No? Okay, good. So, and because Kia,
Go ahead.
the reality that I'm looking at is that there are 3 times more park acreage per resident in Milwaukee than not. And so I wanted to know what kind of, because I heard what you said that we're having to cut back, but that's not in the agreement. And it still is giving them the $902,000 above and beyond the local share that they already got based on what their residents paid in. So that would be double dipping on that. And I have a concern that we're this short and we cut 1.3, then how can we offer to give up $902,000 to move forward? And we have no assurance that that levy is gonna have any support from.
Grover, are you assuming that the $902,000 of Metro local share funds, that those can be used for operations?
No, I'm talking about, how are you paying for justice property, as an example? We already have money lined up for that?
We do. We
Okay,
do.
and
So
then-
we have zone 3 system development charge funds that are going to pay for that initial planning and design. We'll only move through conceptual design because until we have certainty that through a levy or other means to obtain additional operational funds, we won't actually construct that project. But we do have the resources for planning and design through our system development charge program. We also, as I mentioned earlier tonight, Metro is going to award additional resources for construction of that park. So they are already looking ahead and betting on us that we will be able to construct that. So when the time comes to build a justice property, for example, we'll have some additional grant resources in addition to system development charge funds.
Okay, and then the last one would be the 70th and Monroe.
That's right, and 70th Monroe, remember, we have a partnership with the development agency, so they have committed resources to help develop a conceptual design for that entire site. It's almost 10 acres, and then they also have committed some resources to develop phase 1 of that park. And we could also allocate some of the SDC funds from the urban growth management area, which is that second sort of sub area of zone 1.
Okay, I'm gonna extend the meeting until 7:20 and call on Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna say this really bluntly. I don't find it all that helpful to sort of dive super deeply into how the SDC funds are split or the maintenance dollars are split. I know that there's, sort of some push and pull and different parks have different needs, right? We know that there are places in our district who want more parks. I'm very excited to hear the SDC study is going to be restarted because it was paused way back when I first got involved. And I think retooling that will be really helpful. I'm also going to say for the folks who say Milwaukee Bay Park is a regional asset, like, I want to be really supportive of that as someone who's way out, you know, but I'm an hour TriMet ride to transfers from the park. I would invite all of our folks who are really supportive of Milwaukee Bay to also, participate in the trails, feedback period where you can hop online and support more connections. Hop onto the transportation system plan for Clackamas County. It's the 17th or the 13th, excuse me. Say we want more trails, we want more protected bike lanes, so people can get to this regional asset. We want to get the levy funded because then we'll have like shuttles and buses and camps and, you know, rec activities, and folks from the community centers can go to the regional assets. That would be so cool, right? Like, let's dream it. So all of that said, I recognize that like there's these deep concerns and I wanted to be really respectful and hear about that. But at a certain point, I see it as there's sort of a river that's trying to flow. Speaking of rivers, I'm closer to the Clackamas, but absolutely nodding at my fellow DAC member. There's a dam, and the dam is the IGA. And so we have the time value of money, we have a resource that's money, and we have a resource that's time. And we gotta move the dam. The IGA's, something needs to happen. The dam needs to move. So my strong motivation today is for us as a DAC to make a recommendation to our board of directors. Some recommendation that we can all agree on in a majority fashion. And that we move the dam so things can keep moving forward. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you.
Okay, and I've got Dick.
I can go after Mayor Beatty and I'm writing with motion.
Okay, I have Daniel, then Lisa, then Laura.
Thank you. After
And,
Laura.
and I'll put you down for after them. Oh, and I'm calling on Daniel. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay, I had a quick question, I guess, either for Dr. Sally or Mayor Beatty. Just back on the utilities and fees thing, it came up in the meeting last night, that some of that is back pay, is that right? Like, for, in Emma's presentation.
So, city manager Sigor referenced the fact that, since January, NCPRD has not paid utilities. And Milwaukee staff are well aware of that. It is not customary for NCPRD to not pay its bills, but we have agreed that for the time being, that's what we should do until we basically work out this fee utility issue. But having said that, I want to be really clear that given that we've now proposed new language mutually, NCPRD staff and Milwaukee staff, that we will give ourselves until July of 2027 to work these fee and utility issues out. We definitely need to become current on our bills. And their proposal is to go to the June 2025 rates so that we can get paid up. So I will be working with City Manager Sigor to make sure that we become current. So she was referencing, I think, some of the unpaid invoices. Yeah.
I have just kind of like a clarifying. So back to the end of our second to last page, the Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 funding IGA, those numbers total up to, they totaled up to the roughly 4.9 million. I can double check. You said that those funds could not be used on new projects. So like for my sub area, for the underserved areas, that money can't go towards anything new. So it is, like, sorry.
So thank you for that question, Daniel, because I think others might be wondering the same thing. So there are three kind of buckets that make up that 4.9 million. The two that basically can't be allocated to, well, I'll walk through each bucket. So this, there is one bucket is the Metro grant of $658,000. It's dedicated to Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3. So that can't be used in your sub area. The second bucket is the up to 3.3 million of system development charge funds from the Milwaukee portion of Zone 1. Those could only be used theoretically in your sub area if they were to fund a community scale community scale park. So and then the third bucket, the 902,000 Metro local share funds. I think this is the point that Grover was making, which is those can be used for any project that meets the Metro local share grant requirements. They do have some requirements of park projects, but those could be used anywhere throughout the district. So those are flexible funds for capital projects. Again, can't be used for operations, but could be used for any capital project throughout the district. Not for capital repair and replacement though. I do want to make sure, we can't repair the aquatic park or we can't repair a trail. It'd have to be a new park amenity or a new park.
Thank you.
And I think it's important to note that there is a clawback provision for those. So if Milwaukee were to leave, Milwaukee would have to pay those back.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
And Lisa, it's your turn to speak. Okay. So I'm prompted a little bit by Grover's comments and also by the opening comments and also by Commissioner Salvis's closing section of the June 24th meeting to sort of try to address the elephant in the room about whether Milwaukee's looking to leave. I do have to correct Anita. In 2020, Milwaukee was not talking at all about leaving. Milwaukee was full steam ahead on the plans from 2017, 2018, working with the county on IGAs at that time to move the park forward. It was only in 2022 when those agreements got stalled out for over a year and weren't moving that Milwaukee first started talking about leaving. So in 2020, I've been on the city council since 2015. We were not talking about leaving. I don't think I said that.
You did. So you said since you got on the board in 2020. So I just wanted to correct the record on that.
Things weren't being talked about, and then now they.
In 2014, I was running for city council for the first time, and it was also the year that NCPRD tried to reform the district and go out for 85 cents per thousand. I was a big supporter of that. I even have campaign photos of me and the parks people all out, along 99E with signs waving to support that ballot measure. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it did pass in Milwaukee. So going to that point about will Milwaukee support a levy or not, as Mr. Munz pointed out, we cannot commit a future city council. And as there's no active effort right now to go out this year, we especially can't support it, can't commit a future city council because there will be 3 elections on our city council this fall. But I do welcome whatever point the district is ready to, put something forward, we'll consider it, right? And I said this at the June 10th meeting, but I do encourage the district to look at reforming the district. Reforming the district, going for more money. I really appreciated the presentation that was given there about the idea of a state of how we have to convince the community that it's needed and the idea of a state of the district report. I think that's super important to sort of really bring some attention to the shortfall, because I've been on this DAC since 2023. We've been talking about the need for a higher rate, since then. And I totally agree that the rate needs to be higher. So I do encourage us to look at and think about the idea of reforming the district as well as going for a higher rate. That was identified in 2023 as a priority by the DAC at the time. There were sort of like 4 priorities, and that was one of them. I just want to emphasize that what just came up in the exchange with Kia, which is the only part of this deal that could be spent in other sub areas, with the exception of projects
that are, you know, community-wide assets, is that 900,000, and there is a clawback provision for that. So if Milwaukee were to leave the district, that would be paid back. You know, if Milwaukee were to leave the district, there would also be some sort of payback, I think, for Wichita, for some proportion of Wichita Park, because that is the one park that NCPRD has built in the last decade in Milwaukee. And I also, I mean, I look forward to future discussions about future funding, about reforming the district. I also look forward to some substantiation of that 500,000 subsidy that gets tossed around. We've been hearing it for a couple of years now, but I've never seen any, you know, substantiation about that. So I look forward to that. But I think my closing comment here is there's really no, I mean, Milwaukee's bent over backwards to taking on the Milwaukee Community Center, you know, taking on a lot of obligations that relieve NCPRD's budget woes. So I really don't see this deal as risky for NCPRD, and I hope you guys will vote to along the lines of Director Selly's recommendation to approve the IGAs.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Laura?
I think we're migrating. Almost on the same thing, so, but I did want to, Jenna, I really like what you said, is I do think this is holding us back for not, I know Milwaukee Bay Park is talked a lot about, but it's holding the entire district back from projects, and so, and moving forward, it's a dam gonna break. So I love that analogy.
Jeanette?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I would like to, considering all the questions and information provided tonight, I would like to motion that the District Advisory Committee recommend to the Board of Directors of NCPRD that they approve the IGA with some small edits as added by staff as needed. As soon as is possible, and certainly before September.
I will second that.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion. It's been said and seconded, so it's open for discussion, but I'm calling on Paul first because he had his little thing raised.
Yeah, thank you. Few things. First of all, I think probably the most important one right now is to say that the purpose of the presentation on June 24th. Oh, thank you. The purpose of the presentation on June 24th is bring you up to speed on what the board was considering. So the IGAs are part of that material, as were the slides. And there's those options, just make it perfectly clear, those options were one or two commissioners have ownership in some of those ideas. I have ownership in maybe one or two of them, perhaps. But I think what we contemplated was that you would consider those options 1 through 6, and or add an option, have your own option. So I just want to get that as a procedural thing. I think that was the expectation, because some of those options include approval of the IGAs, but under certain conditions about the levy or certain conditions about the subsidy. So speaking of the subsidy, just to remind Mayor Beatty respectfully, is that in the legal proceedings and the documents and all these court challenges, that $500 million figure or $500,000 figure was mutually agreed upon or presented in the record. And with Jeff, could you sign that for it? Those are your words.
Those are not my words. They're not in legal documents. The surplus has been discussed. Is that through discussions with the city of Milwaukee. I think what we're talking about is the city of Milwaukee contributes approximately 20% of the revenue raised through the settlement for the residents that are within the district. And they have approximately, I think it's 46% of the parks. And so in providing services in the district, those parks are heavily used. And more than the amount of money raised from the city through assessments is being used by the district to provide services in city of Milwaukee's parks. So that's the basis of the analysis. I don't know what the number actually is. There's been a lot of numbers I've heard over the years. Where we're at right now, I'm not sure. But when they contribute approximately 20% of the money and they have about 40%, 46% of the parks through all the different maintenance, programming, development, all that work that is done by the NCPRD each year, it's more than we're collecting from the city. So that's, I think, the basis of that. I don't know what the actual number is, but it hasn't been part of the legal proceedings.
Well, yeah,
Proceedings at all.
I recall you saying that it was when you were working at Milwaukee's legal team, that was a number that you had tossed around in the calculation for withdrawal.
Right, now we're talking about negotiations and discussions way back in the beginning, not in the actual pleadings that have been filed in the case. And that came up in this context of a question we received, I think it was back early on in this process about a statement from the Milwaukee representatives that they're not getting the value for the district as part of some of their frustration. And I think that's, I'm not sure the exact motivation for that, but that the numbers that were provided by the former director looked at this question of, well, we're spending more in the city than we're getting from revenue because from the assessment, because we are using those parks heavily. A lot of people use them. And so there is more money being spent by the Parks District. I think the number back then, the estimate was somewhere around 500,000. And
That rough number was 500,000.
Back in the beginning of this process, which, 21, 22.
Right, so that's where the number came from there at the time. So I do know that our staff has been requested to staff, Gary in particular, the administrator, to perhaps hire a firm to firm those numbers up if necessary, right? If one of these options plays in. So I just want to bring your attention again back to the slides, talk about the deal points and the relevance of that. So I know you can't see them because they're behind folks.
I can hold them up if you.
But I'll just give you an example. Option one.
Excuse me, though, Paul, it's 7:20, so I'm gonna extend us for another 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Option one is condition the funding. This Jeff, I think, need your help on this one too. During negotiations, and Mr. Munn cited that earlier, I think we ought to speak to it fully. The city, you can't bind the city, true. But the option of conditioning the fund transfers, approving the IGA, essentially this option one would approve the IGAs and condition the transfer of the funding upon passage of the levy. Okay, that's what that one is. So you can see it says condition funding on settling the deal points A through C, and the deal points A through C are spelled out on some of the earlier slides. That was the work you're hoping you could all look at and evaluate. And I'm not going to go down each of the slides, but I'm just using that as an example. So there is a way through the contingency of the transfer of the funds. Now, transfer of funds, I think in response to Mr. Bornefeld's question about the metro local share money, the full answer would be that, as I understand it, that is those monies are redistributed on a per capita. And a per capita, that's between $54 and $55 per person. So when you do the math, you multiply that out times the population of the district, you get up around 5.5 million. And if you use that number, then that's why Milwaukee would get 1.1 million of that 5.5 rough amount, right? These are rough numbers. I'm not down to the bank. So the metro local share dollars, Kia, can be used for the next portion of Justice Park, correct? To construct.
So metro local share dollars, I would say yes, the only exception is the park improvements have to comply with the grant requirements. And I don't know, I'll look to Erin to see if she can answer more specifically about the grant requirements. I'm not as well versed about those requirements.
Yeah, so the metro local share funds have to be used for specific types of capital improvements, as Kia referenced. We're not at a point right now of understanding the design for the Justice property and what that would entail to know how eligible that project would be to receive those funds. However, as Director Sully mentioned earlier, we do still have remaining funds. Even beyond that 900,000 allocation, we do still have local share funds that could be allocated for that project if it is eligible. There are also other grant opportunities that are available for projects like Justice or like the 70th and Monroe project as well. So there are actually quite a few different capital improvement funds that we can tap to construct those projects. Where we're really struggling is on the operational funding and being able to provide the maintenance staff to maintain those after they get built. That's what we're really concerned about, and where that really comes down to a tax levy to increase the operational funding.
Right. My basic point is that if those funds, if Justice Park is eligible for those funds, they can be used for that. And, you know, if you look at that number and you take 5 sub areas and you divide it 5.5 million, it gives you about $1.1 million for each sub area if you distribute that out that way. And that's why Milwaukee's number is 1.1 million. And as you know, the sub areas are divided out mathematically by population. So I just want to just get that clear on the record that they can be used prior. Assuming that they're eligible, right? If it's eligible to be used for those particular funds, that criteria. So, I do want to just again remind everyone. I think that what the board is considering and the board is looking for your advice on are these options.
Laura.
After I made all that noise. Okay, I want to speak to that. That is not as a DAC member how it was, or how I feel it was presented. We were asked to give a recommendation on the IGAs, not these options. I also have concerns about these 6 options. I don't feel like they are made in good faith. We hear that term a lot. They include assumptions and unsubstantiated claims. And I don't feel comfortable voting on these 6 options or providing recommendation on these 6 options. My understanding was it was determined or giving guidance on the IGA.
Jeanette?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to mention, I think Mark Elliott on Zoom was looking to give some comments as well. I don't think they were able to, there may be some technology in the way. Thank you very much. To clarify my language, my motion, which is on the floor and has been seconded, is the closest to option 3, which is to sign the IGAs as is. It's been very clear to me. I know a lot of us have sort of reference back to how long we've been involved. But I'm going to be more clear about my analogy of the river and the dam. Mayor Beatty and Director Sadas, please hop out of the water. It's time. I don't think there's going to be an agreement on certain points, but we need to come up with the best possible solution and keep it moving. Thank you.
Okay, is there further? Mark's on screen.
Mark.
Okay, Laura's back up.
Oh, no, I'm down. I'm sorry.
Okay, so is Mark ready and willing to speak?
Well, let's ask Mark. Mark, you've been moved to, or at least you appear on the screen, so we should be able to unmute you. I'm going to ask to unmute you, but you're going to have to unmute yourself to be able to talk.
Oh, there you go.
Mark, are you there?
I am here. Yes, and my apologies. I'm currently in Eureka and don't know how good of a reception I have. I think there's been really good discussion this evening, and part of what I hoped to see was that the committee would be able to be educated about the 2 IGAs by having a thorough discussion about the provisions of it and and be able to discuss those. I thought there was value in discussing the 6 options that Paul put forward, because really when we make any recommendation, we're actually choosing one of those. I think whether we acknowledge that or not, we're kind of backing into one of those. And I think that's valuable discussion to actually go through those 6. The other comment I guess I would make is that I appreciate that Lisa put more information out there yesterday that through the email that she sent to the DAC. I unfortunately have not had a chance to look at any of that information and not really sure what it says. And so it's difficult for me to vote on the current motion without further consideration of what that information was, whether it is in addition to what we already discussed about, or whether it's further support. I just haven't had a chance to look at it. So it's difficult for me to vote for the resolution just with that provision, not knowing that additional information that was made available to us yesterday. So I guess where I am at right now is that, first of all, I think that there's been great discussion and good education of the committee on the issues that we've been discussing in the 2 IGAs. And my other thing that I really wanted to do was to be able to do the right thing. And I guess I have to say, honestly, I'm not quite there yet as far as understanding what is the right thing to do. And so, I have to voice my indecision about it, making a decision. I guess that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Robert?
Thank you. Not mine, I got mine.
Yeah, that's it. I would call on you.
It's a good club, we can all join sooner or later. During discussion here, I'd like to agree a lot with what I just heard from Mark, but also just in general. We do not have any special need. I'm totally in favor of getting this to move forward. There are very few people, Joel would be one of them, who've been on this project longer than me. And I'd love to have it go through. I mean, truly. However, I don't know that there's a big benefit. There is nothing that will make significant difference between doing it now, rushed, with not everyone having all the information, and doing it as it was offered to us by September. So I was shocked to see on the agenda today is that we were expected to make a decision, because that's not what I left this room the last time for. So I just want to be clear. I'm with Mark. There's no rush to do it now. I want us to move forward, but we have till September and we have questions that haven't been asked. And
Jeanette?
I put my thing down, thank you.
Linda?
I'm holding on to mine for dear life. The condition one, I have a question for Mr. Munns, because
Yes.
I have hardly ever even seen each other. There's so much information floating around, and I believe everybody's putting it out there in good faith. But thank you, Becca's and talk to it. Is it legal for us, can you tell us, to vote on the levy as is, listening to what Paul was saying, but only pay the money that we're saying we're going to pay if and when the levy passes? That's an interesting concept.
I see what you're saying. Yes, this is option 1. It would condition payment to the beginning of the city supporting and then us passing the levy. That is something that's been discussed. I think we can put that in a contract if it was agreed.
Could you say that again louder and underline it?
Well, I'll just say
No,
yes.
no,
How's that? Yeah, I think, yes, you could put that in agreement. That's
It
important.
could be in the agreement, but it's not.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. We
I
can,
wasn't even sure.
if the parties agree to that, yes, that would be in there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, I really do appreciate that you sent out additional information. I listened to the council meeting last night, but that information, I didn't even get to look at it until, but to see that it didn't come in until upward 5 tonight. So I haven't seen any of the wonderful notes apparently being missed. But thank you for that.
Daniel?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Lisa? I just wanted to, for those who didn't get to look at the info, for Mark and for Linda and anyone else who didn't get to look at the info, I would say, I mean, there's a 5-page document there. A fair amount of that document is about the utility thing. So I think, I think everything he presented tonight there's nothing about that that's inconsistent, I would say, with what she presented tonight. It's just a lot of detail on how the utility thing evolved. A few other clarifications of things from the June 24th, but I don't think there was anything in that that is really inconsistent with the presentation that staff made tonight. Daniel?
It says actually say share microphone, it says. Just first, thank you everyone, because I've learned a lot tonight, even just trying to read through the document leading up to this and trying to prepare and do homework, but this is really helpful. I guess my main question is if we do take a little bit longer to decide, if that's where we end tonight, and I know that sounds terrible because I know this started January 2025. Is there still a path to like meeting the city's needs or wants to break ground in the fall and finish construction of phase 3 by 2027? Like, do we have a little time? Given we have a lot of questions still and information that we're still reading?
Well, first off, I don't think there's any breaking ground this fall. I think that has slipped. I mean, that was the hope last year when we started in 2025. So breaking ground would be in 2027, best case. But we are working on putting in for grant proposals. We are trying to find the other funding. The sooner we get a decision, the sooner we have the designs and the contracts sent over to us, the better able we will be to, to meet the deadline of even starting in 2027.
Okay, I just want to remind people too that our role, we're not decision makers. We make recommendations to the board of directors. That's our role. And I'm going to extend us now for another 15 minutes and call on Grover.
Thank you. I do appreciate hearing from Councilor Munns about that is an option and the clarification that it's not in there. So that is for me even more of a reason that the idea of being able to have it be conditioned that the levy passes, because as was just spoken, the money that needs to change hands here is not, that's being listed in this current IGA, is not money that is needed. They need permission to go forward, but the money is an added feature that could have that.
That's not what I said, but okay.
I didn't say you said it. I'm saying that is an added feature, that what you need to be able to do the planning is you need to have a change to the agreement, but this one also has added stuff put into it, and we don't have a levy passed, and so we could have that be a condition. And if we're really all looking for having the NCPRD district succeed, we need a levy. I mean, we need a levy more than we need at Milwaukee Bay Park, because we are cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. So that's all I'm saying. This agreement as written does include one, that money exchanging hands. It's not needed to move forward. We need to take that out, in my opinion, and have more time to be able to put an agreement like that in it. And then we really are all committed to having the district succeed, and all those people who don't have parks anywhere close to 10 minutes, let alone 40 minutes. So I'm glad we heard that. Thank you.
And I
And we
believe,
do not have to make that decision today. We can wait up until September, and it will not slow down breaking ground.
I definitely didn't say that.
I'm not quoting you.
Okay.
I'm making a statement.
so Jeanette, just in your motion, you had something about the district staff responding to our comments. Or what was
I'm
in-
sorry, my understanding is that, my understanding was that there was, that Milwaukee's council had agreed to the IGA's language, but there were a couple of language pieces around the utilities that could be ironed out, and there was some draft language in the wings, that could be formalized. So that's what I'm referring to. It's specifically about resolving the questions of utilities.
Okay.
And to give that flexibility that we don't necessarily need to dive into that language. In fact, I don't know that a lot of advisory boards do dive into IGAs, but this is very, it's very consequential to the goals of the district and the goals of the DAC, so I didn't want to belabor that point. Thank you.
Okay. Director Salas?
Oh, I thought you had your.
I did, but I put it.
No, no,
I like
no, no.
she's referred to you. Okay, so back to Linda.
I was hoping when Jeanette spoke the first time that you were thinking in a little bit closer stream together about being in that water and that dam. I'm less concerned about how the SDCs are proportioned or even the dollar amounts right now. The elephant that isn't in the stream that seems to be, or perhaps I'm so new to all of this that it feels like the biggest sticking point is the county wanting to have clarity about which way, if the city ever decided to withdraw, they would do it. And I think I understand that because of the litigation, that question is hanging out there for quite some time. Is there, if it's so important to move forward now, for those that wish to see this happen as soon as possible, and I certainly understand that, is there a way that the city could legally, within the negotiating terms and whatever binding contracts there are right now or agreements, could you decide as a council, if your council moving forward, to clarify which way? Okay, I see, I think I'm talking myself into my own answer because it would be committing a future council. But could you back out of it right at this moment? So you're only with the current council you have. Did that make any sense?
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Yeah,
Well, it feels like that's a huge sticking point to me. And maybe it isn't. The details of the,
I guess is your question, well, I guess I still don't understand your question, is that you're asking, is it the question again, with the city agreeing to support a levy, or is it the city agreeing to dismiss
You know,
their appeals?
I think what she's asking, is, could the city agree to follow the 198?
even though the court has not ruled, if the city wanted to, I'm not saying they do, I don't know what the pros and cons are of that.
Right.
But I'm asking, would that be another way to break this? To remove the dam, I think was the phrase.
I understand the Parks District's position all along has been that RS 198 is the proper method, and that this county, the NCPRD didn't have authority to agree to a method under 222. That isn't an option. There is that provision doesn't apply to a service district in this way. It's similar language to something in the ORS chapter 451 that governs service districts. But that statute then points us to the 198 method as the primary method for withdrawal. And so that's been our position all along, that if the city chose to withdraw and they presented a petition to the Board of County Commissioners, you know, whatever those terms would be for their withdrawal, that would be the proper method to do it. They could do so. They haven't done so. And it's not, I don't know what the city's position publicly hasn't been saying we are withdrawing. The council said at one point in court, but that's not what we've heard from the mayor and all of our negotiations. We all are taking that at, face value, that's where they're at. They haven't made a decision. That is a method open to them, yes.
Thank you, and that does clarify. There have been a lot of discussions outside of circles such as this about that question, and I really haven't understood if that is such an important part of all of this, why it hasn't happened. So I'll just leave it at that.
Director Salas?
I appreciate actually that, and I'm going to speak to that first before I go on my other point, and that is that, again, I can't speak for Milwaukee, I'm not going to, but there's two elements that of the 222, one of them being the financial risk to the district if they have to divvy up those assets, and that's the $6 to $18 million. I didn't make those numbers up; those are numbers provided by staff. So that's the potential impact. So Milwaukee could also say, you know what? I don't know. The other element is that they had under 222, they can do it by vote of the council. So I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's the vote of the council that they want to hold on to, or it's the six to $18 million that they see as opportunity, because, you know, we have heard different messages from the city of Milwaukee. Before Mayor Beatty was the mayor, and even before Mayor Beatty was on the council. So I have heard the drum of we are, you know, we, under certain situations, they have signaled many times, and even to individual county commissioners, that they wanted to withdraw or were considering withdrawal. So we're getting mixed messages. I'm not challenging the mayor here tonight, but I did read that email that I got late this evening, late this afternoon that is, and I will say that there's some inaccuracies, there's some serious omissions, and I just don't want to, I'm trying to rise above that. We don't want to be in the weeds with challenging each other, but I stand by. I was challenged in that. My name's used in that message several times. I stand by everything I said, and I think all those numbers you see, I didn't generate those numbers, and these options, those are my options. Those are the options the board considered that certain commissioners put up there. And the other thing that was claimed in that late email this afternoon is about Councilor Massey challenging that the goals of the negotiating team. As I stated on June 24th, and I'll state again here tonight, these were the goals the board of directors in executive session had on the wall for 2 years. And before it was on the wall, it was discussed. So those 4 things: fix the finances, get progress towards fixing the finances. That is the most important thing facing the board. And that is the financial. We cut $1.7 million just to make ourselves whole. We're in financial trouble. And there's not one message about that I saw in that late email this afternoon. The ORS 222, for the reasons we just talked about, that's a board goal priority that the board discussed. We never said that was what the negotiating team had for goals. Parity, what we talked about that with the parks, and then this withdrawal issue, whether or not they're going to withdraw. Those are the issues that the board's facing, and that's why those slides are up there. That's what we're looking for your help on. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Jeanette, can you read that again before we vote? Or yes, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. That's okay. I move that the district advise Jessica might have it. Oh, Jessica might have it.
This is my list right here.
What's your name changes?
Motion was that the DAC recommend to the board of directors that they approve the IGAs with the potential for some small edits as added by staff as needed as soon as possible and at least sooner than September. And then Laura seconded the motion.
Okay. So I wish I could give you some guidance. I know there's some people that want more time, and so I don't know how to advise you to vote if you want more time, but I'm going to ask for those in favor of the motion, please raise their hand. Hands down, those opposed.
Smart.
Mark has not. Mark, can you let us know maybe in the chat what your vote would be? Because I did not see your hand raised.
Yes,
Is there also an option to abstain?
Thank you.
yes, there is an option to abstain. Okay, so I'm asking for the no's, so I'm going to have people raise their hands again. I'm sorry, I'm a bad counter. Okay.
And then Chair Shaw, I'm just gonna remind
Abstainer,
you
I
to
know.
count yourselves
Yeah.
wherever you may fall.
I know, and abstain.
Any abstentions? Yeah, you got him. You got it.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Hey, I just kind of hit, so we have 2 abstentions. So it's a tie, it's 4.
Who's the other abstention? We got Mark is a no.
Okay.
Did I count him? Okay, so could no's raise their hand again?
No,
1,
if it was Mark,
2, 3.
Mark said I'm gonna.
Mark was the 4th one.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the vote is tied,
So it doesn't pass.
but it doesn't pass.
Yeah, motion goes.
Motion fails.
The motion fails. And so it sounds like we need more time and I hate to keep us here longer while I find out what exactly it is that people need.
Can we get one clarification on the voting? Sorry, we did not catch in the notes, Daniel's. vote,
Daniel
sorry.
was a no,
Daniel was a no. Okay, thank you. That squares
so it
up
was
our numbers.
4-4-2.
Okay,
And hopefully that adds up to.
okay, thank you.
So I need to know from people what you need to have happen to Grover.
Right, so if you're gonna call for a motion today, then, okay, well, then more time would be, we'll have more time.
But
So you don't need to know what we need to know in that specific regard, we can get that information. Case in point, we need to know about the opportunity to shift the funding until it has been determined that,
so you're saying you need more information from the district? So I'm not asking.
We need different, the motion, I mean, excuse me, the 2 IGAs both need to be fixed. And they are not, they're not currently fixed now, so as they are, it's a no. So we have time to see what other recommendations come in, and some of them came up into conversation today. Case in point, to consider taking the money off the agreement. It doesn't have to be now for them to move forward with what they say they want, because they want to do the other half of planning. And then they have $10 million in my guess, but they're gonna have to figure out where they're gonna raise that. None of that's, getting this money now is one of the things that I can't see why that needs to be in this agreement at this point for them to be able to move forward.
Jeanette?
I'm gonna, go after,
Sorry.
Oh,
You just put
you
it
do
back.
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just put it up. So
Well,
go ahead.
but Laura was forward.
I mean, my question is maybe for you. I'm curious, like, these IGAs have been negotiated for so long. Are you able, like, if you're asking for the IGAs that we've been asked to give guidance on to be revised, is that even possible by September?
Well, yeah, this probably addresses what I was gonna go. You can make recommendations to the board.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to make a recommendation, for instance, that you would support the IJs with a certain change, that's fine. But you know, that this body isn't negotiating the agreement, and the board could take that under, under advisement. But, it's a negotiation with the city. And so the city says no, the board is trying to get, the board is going to, they're trying to negotiate an agreement. I'm not sure how they're gonna vote on that, but that's gonna be ultimately their decision to whether they agree to this or not. But this body can make recommendations, and if you need more time to make a recommendation, then you need more time to make a recommendation. But if there's something, if there's another group that makes a motion and says we would agree to support of this change, that's fine too.
Okay.
Okay?
Some more information.
Yeah, so a motion could be made that has some of the things that people are concerned about as a recommendation. Or you can ask for more time to be discussing. So Laura spoke, Jeff, you had your chance. And so next is Jeanette.
thank you. I did a back of the envelope, just kind of counting who I know is staff, and the community center doesn't seem to have another activity tonight. So I'm fully loaded, I assumed $120 an hour per person, and maybe 7 or 8 people. So we're talking out at $1,000 here, and they're gonna have to clean up after we go. So we really want to be fiscally responsible, with our district's resources. Unfortunately, I don't. I'm a little, I think there's a little, overthinking here. If we cannot provide a recommendation to our board of directors, what are we signaling? Are we signaling that we think the negotiations are gonna be able to go forward? Are we signaling that we think they're gonna crash? Are we signaling that we have a secret desire for a certain option to go forward? I wanna really think about, representing the community and how many folks in our sub areas, how many folks generally want to have another sort of split and bifurcation like Happy Valley and NCPRD did. And so that's why I'm sort of acknowledging this may not be perfect, but I don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. And also, I'm happy to suggest a new meeting. I mean, do you want to meet on July 22nd? You want to meet on July 29th? You want to meet on the following Wednesday? How long? How long are we gonna go? I'm getting to the point where I spend more time in this room than in parks. Well, and I'm a little sad.
Hey, as you probably heard, if those of you who watched the June 24th meeting, this is a really important decision for the board and a very important time for the district. Again, the financial thing is, for me, first and foremost. I know my colleagues want to make sure that the district's on good footing. And so really that's top of mind for us. My experience working with committees, even on boards that are work full-time, that go through IGAs line by line, doesn't work, even with us. And I think our staff know that. Jeff, you know that. You know, they might have one or two that might savvy in the numbers, but you know, you spent a long time wordsmithing and you don't understand the consequences. So, you know, that's why the board's been talking at a high level above the language, and I will guarantee you that if we can figure out of these options and some of the high level things, the IGAs will match that, whatever that determination is, whether it's a recommendation that is taken in whole by this group or taken in whole or in part by this group. But at the end of the day, when the county commissioners or the board of directors make their choice about these high level options, our staff, we trust our staff, we're going to craft those IGAs accordingly. So those were deliberately designed for you all to work on. And I would say that I think that all the eyes looking on this and knowing how much time we put in it, you know, an hour or two is what you spent roughly tonight talking about some of this stuff, but you haven't gone through that quite yet. But all I'm saying is that, you know, you can't make perfect the enemy of good, and you can't make haste the enemy of good as well. So it goes both ways.
Grover?
You had your thought first.
No, actually, you were at first.
She's the sheriff.
Your name is written before mine.
I should have yours up and I put mine up, but it's okay. Go. So I actually appreciate what Commissioner Savage just said, both parts of it about making, and I really appreciate Jeanette's as well. It's not about it being perfect, it's not any more information, but what I do know is, and we didn't have that information until we were sitting in this room, that the condition funding on the levy passing is a specific support piece that we need, because that is the most important thing for my way of seeing what NCPRD needs. More than in Milwaukee Bay Park, we need to have that levy passed, and we don't need to have things that are gonna get in the way of that. And I'm looking forward to having Milwaukee Bay Phase 3 be done. So I have a motion. So,
Okay,
but, well, I wanted to let you go first, but if you want
well, I was gonna make a motion, but I can always amend yours.
Okay, good. So I move that the DAC postpone making our recommendations to the NCPRD Board of Directors regarding approving these two current Milwaukee NCPRD generated Amendment 2 of the 2008 Cooperative IGA and the Milwaukee and NCPRD SEC and grant funding IGA given both these current documents fail to further the district-wide interests and the welfare of all NCPRD residents, which have been clarified by the Design Workshop Incorporated consultants after nearly 2 years in-depth research recommendations for NCPRD's next 20 years. And so this is, just a side note, this is looking to not follow what they said. And that the DAC continues to be actively involved in ascertaining a workable path forward for all residents and in formulating relevant recommendations for the NCPRD Board of Directors at their meeting in September.
Okay, can I tell you what my motion was gonna be?
Sure.
Okay, so what I was gonna move, which I'm not actually moving now, was that we approve the IGAs, but with the stipulation that the district and the city of Milwaukee and the board of directors take into consideration our concerns that we've expressed tonight, financial and system plan wise. And I know that's not a complete sentence, but that was the nature of what I was going to.
I appreciate that. And I want to say that our board, our committee, making a recommendation is then recommending that it goes forward as is and letting them do, because to some point, they can make any changes they want anyway, regardless of what we say.
But I think that they do listen to what we have to say.
We know at least one.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I trust that they do listen to what we have to say, and if they watch,
True.
they were there on the 24th, and they're able to watch and listen to this, that we have to, but.
Okay, well, my motion still is my motion.
Okay.
I'd be happy to read it again.
And so I'm just, wait a minute, any discussion about Grover's?
We have a second.
I'll second it so we can have discussion.
Okay, Linda seconded, and Lisa?
Okay, I mean, I guess it's sort of, I would just say that, I mean, it sounds like we're not gonna, approve the IGAs tonight. I do think, I'm only one vote of 5 on the Milwaukee City Council, but I do think you have to recognize that it's possible we walk away. We've been at this for 19 months, very frustrating 19 months. And, if we walk away, NCPRD is responsible for the Milwaukee Community Center. NCPRD is responsible for maintenance of Milwaukee Bay Park. NCPRD, there are things that we are taking off of NCPRD as obligations under these IGAs that will evaporate and will still remain as NCPRD's IGA obligations. So just, you know, I think I just want you to take that into consideration.
Okay, Vanessa?
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. I would just like to mention for me personally, what's challenging is that this is my first meeting. So to abstain, I felt like was the most honorable choice because I have not been a part of 18 months or whatever.
And none of us have.
Okay, there's many months of what has been happening. And I still feel like I have a lot of questions because I don't understand an intergovernmental agreement. I do trust what Kia is saying, and it sounds like staff put a lot of work into putting this together. I'm really excited that the city of Milwaukee has decided that they have said that they are going to do repairs for the Milwaukee Community Center, and the fact that they could leave and that wouldn't happen would be expensive. I think that Jeanette made really good points about how expensive it is for these staff members to continue to stay here throughout the night. But I also have just begun this whole journey, and I don't know that it's fair, honestly, for me to be able to say yes or no.
Okay, so Grover's motion is on the table. Can you give us a brief summary of it?
That we postpone making a recommendation, and that we have a recommendation ready for the next NCPRD board meeting.
Okay, so in order for us to have a recommendation by that meeting, so you mean,
We have a DAC meeting in September.
right, so by the end of that meeting.
Correct. And then they meet after that anyway, so.
Actually, the board, my understanding is that the board specifically. My understanding is that the board specifically asked for a recommendation by September first. Chair Shaw can request additional time. So I just wanted to be clear about that. So as long as your motion includes some language that you have additional time to discuss this at your September DAC meeting, and then you provide, and then we can move forward. I believe that we are not going to have our board meeting on the last Wednesday of the month. We are actually going to have it sooner in September. Jessica, do you have that date?
It's currently slated for September 16th.
Okay.
And ours is scheduled for September 9th.
So, documents have to be posted a week in advance. That's the only challenge.
Well, so can we go ahead and vote on this?
So you can vote on this, but we may logistically want to consider having an August DAC meeting. And I apologize because I know summer's a busy time, but that may be better logistically so that you can all properly prepare the report. Consider the issue, prepare the report, post it for the public so that we can follow the public process.
Okay, so if we would have this August DAC meeting rather than September.
That's, yes. And actually, if you do that, then you don't need to ask for additional time.
Okay, Linda.
Oh, I think it all just got answered. I was wondering about using our retreat date and time.
Okay, it's my understanding that the discussions that we have need to be public.
Right, but if we turned our retreat time, made an hour of it or something like that, I would love to talk to Lisa and Laura and Jeanette in a much more relaxed and comfortable manner about some of these questions.
And because that's only 4 of you, you can do that without it being a complete meeting. Okay. So Grover's motion, those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed?
What did Mark vote that we don't know?
Mark, can you enter your vote into the chat for Grover's motion, please?
Lisa, was your hand raised?
Or no, yeah.
Mark voted yes.
And Mark say yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just such a bad counter. I'd ready to go back to yes. Those that voted yes, please raise your hand. I didn't vote yes.
No. Did you?
Oh,
No.
sorry, no, you gotta be confused now.
1, 2, 3, and Mark say yes?
Yeah, correct.
And those that are voting no? And those that are abstaining?
It doesn't add up.
It adds up to 10.
Oh, Dan.
4 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain.
We should abstain.
Director Salas?
Just a small, I don't think you really need a motion, frankly. So just procedurally, I just suggest that maybe you allow the chair and the vice chair to come up with the next available meeting date that's good for you all. Maybe tonight you could say what that would look like. Maybe it's August or July, whatever, but you're gonna have that meeting anyhow. So I don't think you need a motion for that to happen.
Great. The guts of my thing was to postpone making a recommendation. That is the guts of my.
Well, yeah, your second version of your motion was far less problematic than your first one.
I read the same thing twice. I don't know what you're talking about, second version.
You read a long thing and then you came back with when you were asked to do it shortly, you said, I just move that we defer this.
That was just the.
Very, okay, is there additional business?
Good.
Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8.5 minutes after 8.
Nice.
I know, I'm like, sorry.